Em xin phép phụ huynh và các bạn học sinh là mình có thể bắt đầu trật tự để chúng ta sẽ bắt đầu buổi show kênh ngày hôm nay ạ. Em xin phép được tự giới thiệu, em là Vũ Anh Tuấn, giám đốc học thuật của VADP. Thì ngày hôm nay là một sự kiện vô cùng đặc biệt. Chúng ta đều biết là sau Covid-19 thì debate bị ảnh hưởng rất là nhiều, tại vì khi mà Covid-19 diễn ra thì gần như tất cả hoạt động về tranh biện là đều phải dừng lại. Và sau đấy thì có tranh biện online ra đời. Thì tranh biện online là một trong những sản phẩm mà thúc đẩy việc các bạn có thể tham gia tranh biện dù bất cứ đâu. Và khi mà Covid-19 qua đi thì giờ đây chúng ta có cơ hội để mà tập trung với nhau nhiều hơn. Nhưng mà VADP vẫn luôn tin rằng là việc mà các bạn học sinh có khả năng là có thể tranh biện dù các bạn ở bất cứ đâu là một điều vô cùng quan trọng. Ngoài ra thì ngày hôm nay VADP cũng đưa đến một trong những câu chuyện, đó chính là về việc đấy là phát triển tranh biện theo đúng chuẩn WSDC. Vì vậy ngày hôm nay chúng em rất là vui mừng ở đây là sẽ tổ chức một buổi showcase. Chắc là mình sẽ bắt đầu mic check một chút ạ. Vâng.
Chắc là nhờ Hà Nội nói một câu dài giúp mình để xem ở Sài Gòn có nghe được không?
Em thèm bún bò Huế.
Ở đây Hà Phương bảo Hà Phương thèm bún bò Huế, không liên quan Sài Gòn lắm.
Cảm ơn mọi người. Dạ vâng, vậy thì em xin phép được tiếp tục. Với mong muốn rằng là sẽ phát triển tranh biện theo đúng chuẩn WSDC thì ngày hôm nay VADP rất là vui mừng tổ chức một buổi showcase, và đây cũng là buổi showcase lần đầu tiên trong lịch sử VADP, đấy là diễn ra một trận tranh biện giữa các debater miền Bắc và các debater miền Nam theo hình thức gọi là hybrid, tức là nó nửa online mà nửa tại chỗ như thế này, với một cái mong muốn là thứ nhất chúng ta có thể nhìn thấy là tranh biện nó có thể vượt qua giới hạn về không gian. Thứ hai là cũng rất mong các vị phụ huynh và các bạn học sinh khi mà được xem những trận tranh biện như thế này thì sẽ có thêm nhiều gọi là mọi người có thể có nhiều hình dung hơn về tranh biện, là tranh biện chuẩn quốc tế là như thế nào, các bạn sẽ thi đấu như thế nào. Vì vậy ngày hôm nay em rất là vui mừng được mời đến đây. Trong số các tranh biện viên thì có những bạn đã là thành viên đội tuyển quốc gia. Ở mỗi đội thì sẽ có 2 thầy giáo của VADP sẽ thi đấu cùng các bạn, thì các thầy thậm chí đều đã là những huấn luyện viên đã đạt nhiều thành tích quốc tế, hoặc là thậm chí đã là huấn luyện viên tuyển trẻ của Việt Nam. Trong số các tranh biện viên thì ngoài các cựu thành viên đội tuyển quốc gia thì các em có những thành viên đội tuyển trẻ quốc gia, với một cái mong muốn là phụ huynh sẽ có một cái hình dung rõ nhất về tranh biện theo chuẩn quốc tế. Cuối cùng bọn em cũng rất là mong là buổi ngày hôm nay sẽ là một sự gọi là khích lệ, khuyến khích, động viên các bạn nhỏ ngày hôm nay đến đây để mà gọi là đam mê và thích thú môn tranh biện. Chủ đề ngày hôm nay thì thực ra là ban đầu bọn em có chọn một chủ đề học sinh nên để đánh giá giáo viên. Tuy nhiên là thứ nhất cái chủ đề bọn em chọn thì bọn em chọn chủ đề theo tinh thần là bởi vì hôm nay là sắp đến ngày 20 tháng 11 là ngày nhà giáo Việt Nam, và em muốn là có một cái sự gọi là tri ân, và đấy cũng là lý do tại sao mà trong 2 đội thi thì đều có là giáo viên kết hợp với 2 bạn debater để mà thi đấu. Tuy nhiên là bọn em quyết định là vào cuối bọn em có thay đổi một chút về kiến nghị, vẫn là chủ đề về giáo viên nhưng mà bọn em muốn thay đổi kiến nghị nó phức tạp hơn một chút xíu, để mà các bạn thí sinh cũng có thể, các bạn debater ngày hôm nay có thể thể hiện được nhiều nhất cái kỹ năng của bản thân mình. Thì chủ đề ngày hôm nay thi đấu sẽ là chúng tôi sẽ trả lương cho giáo viên dựa theo thành tích của học sinh. Được không? Tức là chúng ta đang nhìn thấy một thế giới mà các bạn học sinh sẽ học nhưng mà thành tích của các bạn ấy không ảnh hưởng đến lương của giáo viên. Thì bây giờ câu chuyện là nếu giáo viên mà dạy học nhưng mà chạy theo cái việc là đồng lương của họ được trả theo thành tích của học sinh thì điều đấy sẽ thay đổi cách họ nhìn nhận, hay là cái cách mà họ gọi là tiếp cận các bạn học sinh như thế nào. Thì đó cũng là một cái mà chúng ta sẽ muốn tranh luận ngày hôm nay. Thì rất vui mừng được giới thiệu. Đầu tiên em xin phép bởi vì em đang ở trong Hồ Chí Minh nên là em xin phép giới thiệu line-up của các bạn debater ở Hồ Chí Minh trước. Đầu tiên em xin được phép giới thiệu đấy là thầy giáo phụ trách của bên thành phố Hồ Chí Minh là thầy Trần Minh Vũ ạ. 2 bạn debater lần lượt là bạn Nguyễn Tường và bạn Ngô Nhật Nam ạ. Ở đầu cầu Hà Nội thì thầy giáo phụ trách sẽ là thầy Ngô Minh Kiên ạ. 2 bạn tranh biện viên lần lượt là 2 cựu thành viên đội tuyển quốc gia, đó là bạn Nguyễn Hà Phương và bạn Minh Khang. Bọn em rất hy vọng là trận tranh biện sẽ diễn ra một cách suôn sẻ và phụ huynh và các bạn học sinh có thể học được nhiều nhất. Vì vậy mọi người giúp em vui lòng là mình có thể tắt chuông điện thoại để tránh gây ảnh hưởng trận tranh biện. Các bạn học sinh thì có thể, nếu mà các bạn mong muốn thôi, thì có thể lấy giấy bút hoặc điện thoại để mình check nốt. Ngoài ra thì mọi người cũng không cần phải quay đâu, bởi vì bọn em đang có livestream trận tranh biện này trên Facebook của VADP. Mọi người hoàn toàn có thể về và tải lại video này sau, nên là mọi người không cần thiết phải quay bây giờ. Dạ vâng. Vậy thì chắc là xin phép không để phụ huynh đã chờ và các bạn chờ đợi lâu hơn nữa. Sau đây bọn em xin phép bắt đầu trận tranh biện ạ.
Ok. Em chào tất cả phụ huynh và học sinh. Chí Minh có nghe rõ em nói không ạ? Ok. Thế thì chắc là bây giờ em sẽ bắt đầu, thì tại vì trận này cũng không có giám khảo chủ tọa, chắc là em sẽ bắt đầu vào bài nói luôn. Em nói qua một chút thì tức là bọn em sẽ có đầu tiên là WSC nó sẽ mô phỏng một chút, tức là trong luật chính gốc thì là một bài nói kéo dài 8 phút, nhưng mà vì yếu tố thời gian nên là em sẽ có là 6 phút cho một bài nói chính và 3 phút cho một lần phản hồi. Thì nếu để phụ huynh học sinh có thể nắm. Okay. I just start, right? MV, you ready? Good. Okay, cool. All right, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Proposition's goal today is very simple. We want to improve the quality of education. We want to motivate both students and teachers in the system. We basically want to advocate for a system of meritocracy where you are rewarded based on how hard you work and the results you get in the beginning, right? How do we measure performance here? Because the motion is we would reward teachers based on the student's performance, right? So we think the performance here should be judged comparatively based on the student's performance in the past, right? So you might be a great teacher if you make an intermediate good student becoming the top student in the country. You're also a good teacher if you can make a student who get a 0 in math improve their scores and get like 6 or 7 in the next exam, right? We think that performance should be judged holistically in that assets, right? We've seen a lot of movies and songs and films that talk about these type of teachers who are very good at making bad students becoming better. We think that's the system that should be applied in this debate today, right? What is the status quo we're talking about? In the US, the number of teachers in public schools are alarmingly low because people don't want to take the fields, right? In countries like Vietnam, for example, the scores for you to enter the University of Education is also low because there's low demand of students who want to go to these universities, right? There are 2 reasons for this. The first is that because there's a low demand for quality teachers, right? So we think that the quality teachers are reduced because there's low demand. The second thing is because there's a long learning curve, right? You have to be an intern at a school, you have to stand in the class, you have to teach for like 10, 15 years before you're considered like a senior teacher or like an experienced teacher, right? Which takes very long for you to upgrade your payment in that run, right? We want to solve this problem systematically, and we believe that tapping on the relationship between teachers and students by rewarding teachers based on the student success and students' performance is justified, right? We have 2 arguments in my speech. The first is how we improve the incentive for teachers to care and for them to improve the teaching quality. The second is how we increase competition in the field and increase the number of teachers in the field, right? First argument then, why do we increase the incentive to care? Because currently, right, we have teachers that basically don't care that much about the students, right? They just come up, they give a 45-minute lesson, and they get off class, right? It's not that all teachers are like that, right? But the majority of teachers are like that because they have to teach many classes, for example, right? So either they don't try hard, or they could have boosted their ability harder and they could have tried harder, but they refuse to do so because they say that if I try harder and I teach like students understand better, I don't get any reward, right? Because my payment will still stay relatively the same, right? How do we help solve this issue, right? Well, number one, we directly attaches the payment, the teacher that the payment the teachers receive to the performance of the students, right? This means that teachers have more incentive to invest in improving the quality of teaching, right? This looks like them actively taking educational courses to improve the quality of teaching. They're taking like services like TESOL, for example, to improve the quality of teaching, ESL, right? Or like reading books, right? To just improve and understand students better, right? Which this ensures that they will pay more effort into improving the quality of education, right? This is especially important when you talk about teachers in primary and secondary school and high school, for example, right? Because at every age, there's the foundational role that teachers play, right? For example, the KR teenagers, you have like puberty, you have all this like different alternates in like the mindset and physical, for example, right? In primary school education, you're the foundational to the students' like view of the world and the moral grounds, for example. In high school, you have to prepare for university entrance exam, which means the students have to face with a lot of pressure, and teachers uniquely help them in this, right? Why is this important, right? Because we believe on side proposition that teachers play a determining role in students' performance, right? They're often referred to as the second home at schools, right? And teachers are their second parents. The narrative is quite common in the Vietnamese culture also, right? That means that teachers naturally important already, right? Because they play the role of the guidance and the mentor of the student in this case, right? But especially when you talk about students who are bulliers, right? Students who are problematic at school, these students are often problematic because they don't receive enough care from their parents, right? Their parent might be drug abuse, parent might be alcoholic, right? Their parents don't care about educating their kids, right? In these aspects, the teachers are these students' only caretakers, right? And they're only mentors, and that means like a crucially more important role in this case.
Okay, my question is like, if the teachers so care about the achievement, they will have likely less spending time on the bad student, because that's not the group that will likely to help them to get achievement, right?
My second speaker will talk about that, but I think statistically it's easier to make a student that don't understand math, understand the basic concepts and improve their scores, rather than making, MB who got like a 9 in literature, getting a 10 in literature. That's quite hard, right? So I think that teachers will shoot for the low-hanging fruit, which is bad students, but we'll talk more about later on why the students will also be helped on our side of the house, right? The next thing to just talk about is that teachers are naturally kept at a high social standard, right? This means that in the society, like you, parents, teachers, students teaching here, right? We often refer to them as a mentor, right? This means that children look up to and follow what their teachers teach them, right? It's like how toddlers mimic what their parents do, right? Or how 5-year-old children sing at the back of their parents on a motorbike. If the parent jump the red light, those children will also jump the red light when they travel alone in the future, right? So we think that this matters because the way that teachers treat the student and the way the teacher invests in improving the method also means that it affects the student's outcome in the future. This is why teachers play the crucial determining role in shaping students' performance, and this is why they deserve to be paid based on the student's performance, right? The second argument, very quickly, is why we increase competition in the field, right? Because the stigma is that education is a very low-paying field, right? That's why people who are smart, people who are creative and initiative do not want to take the education job, right? Because they feel they're not rewarded, right? If I'm a 25-year-old young teacher entering the field, right, I won't be able to argue against 60 or 70-year-old teacher standing in the field because they're considered as seniors, as more experienced, and my opinions are not valued. This is why young people don't take education field as much, right? I think for this reason, this motion actively motivates more people to take it because now they're seeing they're having a higher reward, paying for their creativity and their initiative for all those reasons.
Elo can start. Thank you so much for the first speaker's speech. Now we would like to have the first speaker of the opposition speak. Here. Sorry, I hear myself. Okay, my speech start in 3, 2, 1. Panel, 3 problems that the proposition doesn't answer in this debate. The first problem is the problem of lowering pay for the teacher right now is actually being from the budget of the government that they spend on the education. And their case never respond to us that how the policy could able to change that budget. In fact, if they have still a really low budget to the teacher, by improve the salary for a small group of the teacher, we also decrease the salary for the other group of the teacher because of the limit of the budget, right? So because of that, this actually create a really beneficial for just a really small group of the teacher, which will justify later that those teacher in fact doesn't deserve those special treatment at the end of the day. But second of all, we say that in this debate, there's 2 important framing. The first of all, that the achievement that we're mentioning in the motion at the very first place is actually just good and special achievement, like they got some prize or they got some special achievement at the end of the day. But they are actually caring about the outcome of the teacher and the student, but ignoring the process of working or cooperating between the teacher and the student. As in, if a bad student somehow turning some studying harder and being an average student, they don't care about that process. They don't care about that hard working. They don't care about that effort. And they just ignore that. And they only care about the so good student. That's why I believe at the end of the day, this only leads to really unfair treatment between the student and the teacher at the end of the day, we say. But second of all, in this debate, another framing that needs to be said is at the very first place, it's always had the motivation for the teacher to improve the quality of teaching at the first place because they still got promotion and their salary, in fact, will increase because of like they improve their expert and stuff. If they got more PhD, they be master or they be the doctor, they will easily increase their salary. But at the first place, a lot of teachers choose to not doing those things. So those are the reasons we say that you have proved no argument or no special motivation for those people to actually care that much about money and use money as the main motivation to improve the quality of teaching of the teacher. But second of all, we say that even those teachers were likely to improve the quality of teaching. We say three things. First of all, those teachers at the end of the day will just focus on the group of students who will likely to get them easy got the achievement and get them easy got the promotion. They will likely not care about the students who are actually not really good at studying or not really focused at the studying. They spend less time on those students. Even those students is actually the vulnerable group in the debate. And because of that, those students feel easier left out and excluded from the class. And that's why they will less likely to have the motivations to study at the first place. So that's the first layer. The second layer we say in this debate is like, in fact, the teachers not even likely to care that much about the student because it's actually take a lot of effort of the teacher. And as we mentioned, they don't really care about effort of the teacher and the student here. They only care about the outcome. So what can change the outcome rapidly without actually paying any effort? Just live easy with the student, allow the student to cheating and allow the student to do whatever they want. So the problem of that is like, that is something so easy for the teacher and the student to do without caring about the consequence right now. Because, hey, in fact, the student is young. They only care about the short-term benefit. They don't know that trade-off is necessary to bring them a lot of change in the life in the future. We say in this debate that because of that, the teacher at the very first place play the role of the people who stop the student from doing that thing because the teacher is experienced. They know that the student need to trade off and need to do hard working to exchange up the sustainable income in the future. However, we say in this debate, the teachers lose the motivation to stop the student because the teacher right now will have the short-term benefit when they give the student higher achievement as well. So because of that, we are bringing the teacher and the student into the relation of both of them trying to get the short-term benefit and no one care about the long-term benefit of the student in general. Even the proposition might say, no, thank you. Even the proposition might say that they will likely to get the outcome at the end of the day or someday. That is so late. And we say that in this debate, the problem is every single harm for the student, even in 1 second, is already morally wrong to the education system and to the teacher as well. So I think that is some unreversible damage that could not be changed in this debate. But second of all, we say that this actually turning the comparison between the good teacher and the bad teacher being so unfair because right now the student will easily be in favor to the teacher that easier giving them grade or higher grade and stuff. And that's why in this debate, the dominance will be likely to go into the bad teacher and the promotion is most likely going to the bad teacher as well. Yes, one KOI.
Teachers will naturally favor good students anyway because it makes the lessons more interesting. What changed on our side is that teachers who teach bad classes see a way out for them. When they help this class improve, they get more payment. On your side of the house, there's no way to help these bad teachers in bad classes.
Great problem of that. First of all, teachers have favorite student as well. Yes, but in the past, even if they get the favorite student, they will still likely to spend time on other bad students because that's their job and they got paid for that. But now they know that if they spend time on the worst student, they will have less time to spend on the good student, and because of that, they will have less likely to be paid higher, and that is why they even have less motivation to help those students who will take more time of them and who will give them more less likely results. But we are saying in this debate, other problem could be mentioned is about the competition between teacher and teacher, because as we mentioned, teacher, as we might say that maybe it will be true, like your case, telling that the teacher could be actually paying a lot of effort, but we also prove to you that that way is actually making a really long journey without any certain that they will get the result or not. And because of that saying, we say that most teachers will likely to fall into being the bad teacher who give a really easy task or giving a really easy grade to the student. But even those teachers not just giving easy grade for the student, those teachers allow students to cheat or any stuff. The problem is like, because that brings so quick outcome, that's forced a lot of other teachers, because as I mentioned, the budget is limited. That's why there's so few slot for the teacher to be like raised up or like promoted, right? Because of that, the teacher will likely to compete for that slot, and because teacher will likely to compete for that slot, it's really urgent for them to actually make the results come quicker and quicker. And because of that, they will easily fall into the problem of being easy for the student, or like allow students to cheating or doing some bad thing with the student. So the problem here is like, that's not just turn the problem into from one teacher and a lot of good teacher, one bad teacher and a lot of good teacher. We say that by this, we're enforcing a lot of teachers turning bad, and we create a systematic problem when a lot of teachers cooperating together and make the things become so bad for the student and just give students a really easy grade. And because of that, the problem isn't harder to be exposed, and this problem will sustain longer in the status quo. So that's the problem in this debate that the proposition need to deal with. And last layer of this debate, we say that you're mentioning some problem about the student is not likely to go into the education university anymore. We say that you are give them a really promising future, but that is so uncertain. You tell them that if you teach the students so good, then you got higher salary. That actually work the same with other industry. You say that if you work so well, you can get a higher salary in the future, right? So because of that, there's no specific point in comparing between the education university and other university like Math University or like IT University and stuff. And because of that, you are not changing the motivation at the first place to go to other university over the education university, because the problem of them is like the base of the education, the base salary of the teacher is being so low right now. And that's the main problem, because they need to sustain with that so low base rate for like 3 or 4 years, and they cannot able to sustain their life with that. So the problem we're trying to solve in this debate is how to improve the salary of the teacher equally, instead of just focus on the really small group of the teacher. And because of that, we're proud to oppose. Thank you. So what makes sense?
No. Wait, I'll know. What's okay? Thank you.
Am I audible to the Ho Chi Minh team? I mean, Vũ, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think the point where the first speaker of the opposition team POI'd us, telling us that we would only care about the top students, means that they have completely ignored our entire first speaker's speech already. I would like to make a few clarifications before I go into the rebuttals. Firstly, is that they criticize our model by saying that teachers would only care about top students, and there's no reason for them to care about the lower bottom half of the students, because they would not gain back any awards or achievements to the teachers themselves. Firstly, then, we already clarified from our beginning in our case setup that the way that we are measuring achievements here is based on the improvement of the students in with the 1 point of themselves beforehand, meaning that if a student has an F in math, for example, and they improve to get a C in math, even if they are not the top students in the class, as long as the teacher has demonstrated that they are able to showcase a change or like a positive improvement in the student's performance, that already means that they are a good educator and they would be rewarded based on that. But secondly, I would like to say that the phenomenon that they are talking about is exactly what is happening in the status quo, where teachers only focus on the top students because there's no reason for them to care about the lower bottom half of the students whatsoever. Because if the teacher already cares for presumably everyone inside the classroom, then we wouldn't even need this policy in the first place then. Secondly, they criticize our model by saying that there's a limit on government budget and therefore this policy is not feasible and you will cut budget in other teacher salaries as well. Firstly, we would compare this to a system of bonuses given inside a company. So if you are a hardworking worker, like an employee, you would get paid more for that. This is not a radical improvement in the wage of the salary of the teacher, and we'd also argue that this is a fiat that proposition side can have. Secondly, we think that schools can also gain a source of revenue from the teachers, from the students' tuition anyways. So there's an additional source of money that you can use to fund for teachers who do perform well, meaning that you're not going to cut massively the salaries of other teachers. But thirdly, and that we would say even if this might be a costly policy, we think it's a high return project, where if you are able to increase the literacy rate of students in your own country, or you're able to foster a more talented environment, a talented culture of education, then that means that it's a worthy investment from the government side. But lastly, I would just note that if their model, that the first speaker also positioned that they want to increase the salary of all teachers unanimously, then they would also have to have the same problem of the budget if they are criticizing that on our case. So this is like a double standard on their side. Lastly, then, is their argument about why how this is going to change the education system for the worse. They gave us two reasons under this. The first argument that they provided is that teachers would only care about the results, not the actual process itself. job. And secondly, as they tell us that teachers are going to give out easier tests in order to gain better recognition, and it's only a short-term thing because of money. In both of these cases, I would know that they really don't have a clear understanding of how education system actually work. We think that a learning process is something that is long-term. Teachers cannot force students to cram out knowledge in like 1 week before the exam, or try to have like an easy way out by providing easier tests, because these students ultimately would still have to take many standardized testing, like the graduation exam in high school for these students anyways. So that's why teachers will still have to prepare for them as best as possible. We would also note that education is highly multifaceted. Teachers cannot just simply like cram all the knowledge to the students, but we have already pointed out from the first speaker that they would have to incorporate many other interactive ways to improve the lesson quality. That's why we think this is actually improving the process of learning itself, not actually diminishing the value of it. Before I go into my own arguments, all the anti-POIs.
Okay, my problem is you are telling that people are likely to get like caring about the improvement of every student. That make the process so lengthy and complicated. The problem is like all the leader of the education system right now don't want or don't have the motivation to improve the salary of the student. By that lengthy process, they have even more mechanism to stop the teacher from being promoted, and that's even harmful for the teacher more.
Okay. Firstly, you have pointed out that teachers will still have the incentive to care about students anyways, because you can still like level up in your own job. However, our first speaker pointed out to you that the education system itself is incredibly long-term. So teachers have to commit a very lengthy time in order to even get like a higher position in their own field. So when you're comparing both sides here, we say the time commitment for the teachers on your side is significantly longer than what it takes on our side in order for teachers to actually be recognized. And I think that is a crucial difference here. But lastly, they have this argument on why you're turning away teachers, because now essentially because you're rewarding them for their hard work, somehow that makes the old system completely similar to every other major out there. I just don't think this is realistic, panel. Let's just have a few responses then. Firstly, we think because it is so lucrative now that you're going to be rewarded based on how well you teach, this is actually going to attract more teachers into the field rather than turning them away. Because the problem that we have pointed out from first is incredibly how low paying this job is. That's why so many people are exiting out of this career, and that's why we have the current problem of a low human resource in the education system. But secondly, even if we are turning away some form of teachers, we think we are fine with that trade-off, because this is just natural selection. So the teachers who are incompetent, who are unwilling to commit to their own industry, are just going to be leaving this industry itself. But what we have in return is that we are attracting more talented, young and creative minds into the field who are going to seriously educate people and truly care about whether or not you're teaching well to the youth out there. That's why we are able to improve the development of the education system overall. Lastly then, panel, I'd just like to have this one principle weighing on why our side matters way more than any of the arguments they may bring up. We think that the current problem with the education industry itself is that it's incredibly senior dominated, meaning that because so many people are being recognized and being paid more simply for the fact that they are older or they are more prestigious, means that you're already turning away young talented minds, and you're not actually having a serious meritocracy system out there. Our side is actually rewarding people based on the capacity and their ability to contribute to society as a whole, and for those reasons I'm proud to propose.
It's 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Damn.
Am I audible for over there?
Okay.
That's nice.
Wait, no, Gun, can you speak louder?
Is this audible now?
Yeah, I think.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Proposition's case is running under assumption that schools and the government have the incentive to increase the teacher's salary in the first place. I.e., we tell you this is false because we see in the history of school, history of teachers, no one wants to do so. And the problem with this is that, the teacher salary isn't just going to go up, but it's going to be even distributed even more. I.e., if a teacher is going to do better, the teacher's got to get more salary. But then it also looks like, number one, the base salary of the teacher is going to be decreased by the government in order to justify this action. But secondly, the teachers who are underperforming are going to be taking the salary away. The problem with this is that, number one, it not only disproves your idea on how, oh, you're going to attract more teachers, but the problem is that, oh, the teachers are going to stop sharing the content more, that the whole industry, the whole quality of the teaching is going to be decreased much more. Three major approaches we get from proposition. Firstly, on a teacher quality, three major responses to this. Number one, there are often check and balance systems that already exist. For example, the students can complain to the principal, the student goes home and tells his parents, and then the parents will complain to the government, right? And there's a lot of check and balance systems in the world that currently exist in order to make sure that students are going to be getting the best quality teaching possible. Secondly, this is likely going to have an opposite effect, i.e., teachers will focus more on the good students because we're going to, based on the assumption that, oh, these teachers are going to be judged on basically only their achievements, right? I.e., only the good students are going to be the ones that we take into account of. This bad student, the one that are going to become an average student after this, is not going to have that much achievements, therefore not going to have any recognition at all. But also we tell you that they're going to focus a lot more on achievement, right? I.e., number one, it looks like you're going to lower your expectations for the students. I.e., it's going to be much easier for you to get an A+ or get a higher grade. But also it looks like the teachers are going to be focused more on cheating, right? They're going to teach the students how to cheat much more. They're going to help the students cheat and everything in order for them to get the better grades, and therefore the teacher going to get a better salary. But thirdly then, which comparative and which narrative is most likely to be more true? And we tell you that we're running on proposition's own framing on how, oh, the teachers are underpaid, right? This proves to you that the teachers themselves are desperate, and therefore they're likely going to do everything in order to make sure they get the money. I.e., they're not more likely going to be very unfaithful and not integral in their decision making. Moving on then, secondly, on the competition. I think competition is quite vague here and not really explained on the other side. But basically, I think it's much more likely that the students, that the teachers are going to compete with each other in a bad way. I.e., for example, the teachers are going to do things like sabotage other teachers, going to directly talk bad about the teacher behind their back against the principal, for example. And that's many of the ways that they're going to counter it, right? But secondly, on the teacher's salary, they do tell you that this is not true, and the result of that is, number one, you're going to lower the teacher's base salary in the first place. Secondly, bonuses sure exist, but in the first place are already very low. And thirdly, you're going to shift the salary from the worst performing teachers to the better performing teachers. Moving on to the case then, I think it's just going to result in a worse competition. Two major reasons why this actually happens. Number one, jealousy and fame. Humans by virtue really want fame and really want others to be jealous of them, right? That just makes them happy in itself. But the problem with this is that's going to ruin the teacher and teacher relationship. When the status quo, teachers share the content with each other in order to make sure all the grades are going to get a good quality education. But now no one cares about it anymore because they're just going to try to compete with each other, i.e. sabotage each other, i.e. do not share anything with each other, i.e. directly talk bad about each other behind their backs, right? This is the problem, is that, oh, you're going to, number one, make sure that it's going to result in less focus on the students and more focus on the actual teachers, which already in its base is not the point of education in the first place. Secondly, you gain more money, right? And this is how the salary is going to go from the worst teachers to the better teachers, right? Schools have no incentive to pay whatsoever. Therefore, they have no incentive to pay more money to teachers. I.e., the whole thing is going to stay the same. The budget is going to stay the same. It's just how you're distributing the money to the teachers. I.e., they're going to try and gain more money, and by that, they're going to sabotage others, because the more you can sabotage the other teacher, the more you can take more money away from them, and therefore, the more money you yourself gain, and that's just integral as part of human. Before to continue, I'll take a point.
If teachers care about their fame and reputation, why would they risk their entire career with a cheating scandal or a sabotaging scandal with their coworkers at the workplace?
Because everyone does that now. If everyone does that, you can't really fire the whole school, no? So if you're going to focus on jealousy and fame whatsoever, you can't. Everyone's going to do that because that's the integral, and your side is the one that's actually going to be exacerbating the problem in the first place. Moving on then. Exclusivity. I think the only reason why we do not have this on our side is that the money's gonna stay the same, right? I.e., you're still going to collaborate with each other because no matter on how good your students perform, you're still getting paid just as much. But two impacts then, number one, it's very unfair, right? I.e., if you look at the teachers who have worse students in the first place, they're not able to actually improve on their own students. The students may be just so bad that they're not able to actually improve, and therefore it's now apparently their fault that their students cannot do better. And therefore that's unfair for them. But secondly, you're downgrading the students' performance. Rather than having a student-oriented school, it's now a teacher-oriented school. And that's not what we want. It's not what we want because that's not the point of school. Therefore, oppose. I know.
Can you hear me, MD?
Yes, loud and clear. Can you speak? Wait, Khang. Can you speak a long sentence, please?
Can you hear me now? Like, this is fine?
Okay, I will turn on my mic. It's good. You can go.
Okay then. Wait. Start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Three main piece of clarification at the top of my speech. The first thing I want to clarify is on funding and whether we receive funding or not. I think the first thing I want to point out is I think it is within fiat to say that we do have the capacity to increase funding. But two, given that this model proposed significant increase in performance in teaching, I think it's feasible to say that schools can increase demand payment given the higher quality, educational quality that we're offering. But lastly, even if it's true that we lack capacity of funding and we take away payment from low performing teachers, we think this is perfectly justifiable given the nature of the policy and given the nature of education and paying for the quality of education, which is the principle we proposed to you that was never responded. Secondly, what do we think on their side of the house? There's a lack of motivation. Three main reasons. The first thing is their argumentation on promotion just doesn't work. Given the fact that we've given you reasons about why, one, promotion likely prioritize senior teachers that are already much more experienced. Secondly, you're likely only going to prioritize teachers in class with very good students because there's an emphasis on those good students in the status quo on opposition side of the world. But lastly, the problems on opposition side are likely much more worse, given the fact there isn't any emphasis on students that are bad. Therefore, students that are stuck in bad class never gets the chance to promote themselves. All this results in two things. The first thing this results in is that it likely leads to a prioritization of experience and leads to no motivation to prioritize bad students. But secondly, in the long term, this means that a lot of teachers likely prioritize better classes other than smaller class for their choice of teaching students. And that means educational quality is significantly harmed for bad students. Why then on our side do you actually care about bad students? The first thing I want to point out is the existence of the narrative in the status quo. Given the fact that grades will always be focused on opposition side of the house, on our side of the house, because we focus on performance-based, bad students improving well is a significant reason why you're likely to willing to support them, likely giving them teaching reasons. But secondly, given the fact that these are bad class per se, you're likely to benefit a lot from the reputations of those class because you're able to transfer bad students into good students, meaning that there is a large incentive for you to enter the market. But lastly, on opposition side of the world, if you are in a bad class and the students complain to the school, it's not going to be effective given the fact that they're perceived as bad learning students with problems. So it's always the student's fault, never the teacher. Only on our side do you actually put emphasis on teachers supporting these students. Three main winning paths for opposition in this debate. The first path is on whether or not students will be better on their side of the world. They gave you broadly one thing, which is on this prioritization on better students. Three responses. The first thing I want to point out is that our model already clarifies why this is unlikely the case, given that you always grade things on a holistic view. But secondly, I think the fact that you are taking a harder class, helping harder students to improve, means you're likely to be significantly valued much more because you're able to help bad students. But lastly, I think we do have things as general assessment of the whole class as a whole, that if one student in your class is doing bad, it also affects your pay as a whole. So there's a large incentive to focus on your students. The dialogue worker here is very simple, panel. is that a bad class on our side isn't seen as a undesirable class, given the fact that improving these classes are ways in which you can improve your payment. But I think also on the argumentation on cheating, 3 responses here. The first thing I want to point out is just on the manner of an ethic as an educator. Given the fact that you are an educator, you do care about teaching your student itself. But secondly, I think cheating is not that easy, right? Given the fact you have standardized testings, you do have checkings. So I don't think this is something that is feasible or an important argument. But lastly, just as a teacher, your career is very significant. Having a cheating scandal on your career significantly harms your work chance in the future. For all those reasons, then we think that 1, we're likely to focus on bad students much more. But 2, given the fact that on our side, cheating is just unlikely to happen for all the reasons above. I'll take the POI.
My problem as remain is like you are telling one teacher to make the whole class be better. It's technically the same with telling the teacher you're not gonna get the promotion anyway, because that's something that's so unhappenable and that's so unable to be like compare, or there's no mechanism or there's no metric to actually justify how a normal student in the class could consider being better or being improved.
I think the first thing I want to point out is promotion exists symmetrically on both sides, right? But on our side of the house, if you're a bad teacher that's stuck in a bad class, you're likely to get much more spotlight, given the fact that you're able to significantly increase the rate of a 4% student to be a better student, right? I don't see why this was ever a contention in this debate. But moreover, only on our side do you as a bad teacher get any form of payment to have the motivation to continue on. But given the fact that promotion doesn't exist on both sides for a lot of teachers because of seniority for a long time, only on our side do you continue helping teachers teach. Secondly, then, is on whether teachers on our side actually entered the industry. The first thing I want to point out is there was never a proper response. Given the fact that we've given you significant reasons why teachers are likely to enter the industry, because it's much more ludicrous and it's less luck-based, right? Given the fact that you are not dependent on your students, you're not dependent on the class you're in, you now have a stronger incentive to enter the field because you believe in your capacity to teach and you're likely to be able to get good pay. Why then is this significantly so important? The first reason why this is so important is on our side of the house, you likely just have an abundance of teachers that are able to provide for a lot of students that are struggling. But secondly, I think teachers on ours are much more quality teachers, given the fact that they now have constant incentive to improve, because this is the only way in which you're able to show their spotlight and become better. Last clash then is on whether this is fair for the students. The first thing I want to point out is why should you value our principle in this debate? The first reason then is that this principle is a natural extension of working principle. Because if opposition side in this debate tells you that bonuses are things that should be valued, then in that same line, we value to you that our principle should be valued. Because you as a teacher are contributing your best, and given that you're doing your best, you should be rewarded to the same degree of your hard work. If they value bonus, then they value our policy as well. Because only on our side do you actually reward this hard work, and only on our side do you support the pillars of society. But even on a larger scale, why then is this principle so important? Because this is the larger influence of this educational quality, given the fact that we're willing to take a trade-off of significant spend, because students are the backbone of the futures. For those reasons, then we repeatedly won that on a principle level, this is the principle we value as a society of a whole, and naturally we value hard work and therefore we're willing to support them. But secondly, given for all those reasons above, we're able to increase educational quality for students, but also increase the educational field as a whole, given we now have more people willing to enter because it looks less intimidating and you're likely to get paid better for your hard work because it's less luck dependent. For those reasons, then, extremely proud to propose.
You have to say anything? Like,
No, you cannot. You can just start. Okay. Okay, sorry everyone. Subin is a bit shy, so he need me to kick off for his speech. Okay, go ahead, Subin. Here.
Do I have to stand up?
Yes, of course. Everyone stand up.
I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. People don't actually care about cheating if it doesn't mean anything. It's only when you get caught, you actually get scared. I.e., teachers don't even care about fame in the first place if they probably don't care about the money either. I.e., teachers will also do that because they assume that if they don't get reviewed, they probably only care about the money, not what their reputation is. Very simple clarification then. I don't think teachers are robots who could understand every student's emotions way of teaching. So you can't just say that like, oh, if you don't help every student, we don't think you're worth of a promotion, right? The money you're paying into the worth of the teacher to help every student is probably very low, right? Considering of your own framing that, oh, you're going to pay the teacher very low. If proposition wants to do this, you're probably going to allow them to cheat, right? Because no, you can't just get a whole class full of scholars, right? There's probably kids who are more gifted than others and kids who take more time to comprehend a lot of the stuff in class. What's our main comparative then? As long as the teacher are able to improve most of the class, that's probably enough to see that they're somewhat of a good teacher and deserve a promotion. Then let's break the deadlock of this debate. Which side actually caters more to the student then? Proposition says, oh, we have worse teachers, therefore they're better. I think that teacher quality here is best a watch, right? Because I think that passion exists on both sides of the house. Teachers still choose to go into this field on both sides because they could have chose another job for a better salary. I.e., you accept to be a social servant to teach the kids in the first place. The difference then that gives us the balance is that sure, even if there's better students on their side, one, the motivation of teaching on our side is because you want to cater for the youth, not just more money, right? I.e., if you want to take away the bonus, teachers are going to lose all incentive to teach in the first place. Two, all students are catered for on our side of the house because there's no achievement incentives. I.e., I'm still going to be paid if I cater to everyone instead of getting more achievement to only the smart students. Lastly, note that the biggest nuance here is that teachers who want to improve the students who are less smart should be the people who are getting paid better because they're the people, because these students, the students who are struggling with class, are those who struggle with the education the most, not the smart people who are probably, comprehend the class a lot better. Secondly, on the check and balance system, right? I think this exists on both sides of the house. I.e., if the teacher slacks off, there's always a day in every month where a supervisor goes in and checks on the class. I.e., if students don't feel satisfied with the teacher's performance because they're slacking off, these students can report the teacher and probably get them fired, right? Lastly, here's why proposition is worse off than. Proposition only cares about the outcome, but never gave you the actual process in the first place. Here's the actual process of proposition, which is very simple. Either the teacher abuses the kid, right? Because you want a higher salary, but the kids probably don't understand that, right? They're probably naive and they probably won't look in a lot into the future. They'd rather go play games instead of studying, right? Therefore, the only way to force them to be able to learn is by either scolding them or hitting them or physically abusing them. What happens next? There's probably going to be worse relationship between the teacher and the students, i.e. less incentives for the students to study in the first place if they view their teacher as a very bad person. Before I think that POI. 3.
You say that they say that teachers should care for the youth, but not money. Why can't these two things be at the same time? When you teach better, you get more money.
I mean, it's not like we don't pay the teacher, right? The difference here is that you only pay the teacher better if you probably, like, if you help the whole class. We told you that as long as you help the majority of the class, you're probably a better teacher. You're probably worth a promotion, right? Here's why proposition is so much worse than. They probably allow the kid to cheat either way, right? Your salary is contingent on the kid. But sure, if only one teacher does this, it's probably not going to be a big of a problem because it's easier to catch on. But if everyone's doing this, note that's going to be a lot harder to deal with, right? This concedes the whole core of education in the first place. If students don't learn anything, what's the whole point of going to school? What's the whole point of getting grades in the first place? But sure, even if cheating doesn't happen, what happens then is that students pay for them and hope that they get into a good class. Yes, teachers are probably gatekeeping their content as it's contingent to their money. I.e., I'm probably not going to share my content to another teacher because I'm probably conceding away my own money. Proposition then makes the teacher's life a lot harder, right? Let's take into their framing into account. They told us that, oh, teachers are underpaid in status quo, right? You're making it even harder for the teacher then because you're putting so much requirements into those who are barely getting paid enough in status quo, i.e. you're even making it harder for them to make a living, harder for them to pay taxes, harder for them to even go like pay food every day, right? Then what does the world actually look like? Teachers are probably going to suck, right? Because their whole salary is probably like pretty low in the first year, right? They're probably going to have to work their butts off to get enough salary to be able to pay for their food. That's only when they actually improve the whole class, which probably they don't even have the capacity and probably not even possible in the first place. For the first year of teachers then, they're probably going to be paid lower than the baseline, so it meets the budget of the school. It's only when teachers perform better do they actually pay more, do they actually get a living in the first place, i.e. it's probably harder for the teachers to even get a high position in the first place if you enforce such hard laws for them. For all of these reasons, so proud to oppose.
Okay, swap. Oh, có reply. Yeah, that's
Ok ạ, vừa rồi là 3 bài nói chính của một trận tranh biện như mọi người có thể thấy nếu mà mọi người xem bất kỳ trận tranh biện nào. Tuy nhiên thì thường trong một trận tranh biện sau 3 bài nói chính thì sẽ có một bài nói reply speech sẽ diễn ra vào 3 phút theo luật hiện tại. Thì chúng ta sẽ có 2 bài nói reply speech ngay bây giờ, sẽ đội ủng hộ đội phản đối sẽ nói trước và đội trả lời sau.
Okay, my speech start in 3, 2, 1. As a teacher of VADP now, it's actually better for me to be paid by the student achievement, but I still think that is morally wrong to me because it's so easy to make the achievement of my student being better. I just hold my own tournament. I just let all the teacher in the corporation to judge our own student. Then we make up their salary, we make up their achievement and stuff. We let them being superstar and we let them being so famous. That is so easy to make a student having a lot of achievement. That is not something as hard as the proposition say, like major cheating or something. We just need to allow them to do some small thing, don't need to be reviewed, and they will just easily being better. Just for example, right now, I just go to any tournament, especially like World Scholar Cup tournament, giving my student who debating there a really high score. Then I got a really high pay salary. But I think at the end of the day, it's actually morally wrong, not just for me, but for all the teachers all over the world. We believe like at the very beginning, the relation between teacher and student at the very first place is that they got paid the salary, which is affordable, which is like decent at the first place, and they already having the passionate of like teaching the student or educating the student. They need to provide opportunity to the student. They need to help every single student, whether they are good or they are bad. We say this debate is turning the teacher into just a bad version of the teacher. We tell people that in this debate, the teachers will easily just fall into the trap of the money, even they're getting high pay or they're getting low pay. Their attitude to the student is always depend on the money that they got to pay. We believe that's actually not the problem at the first place. The attitude or the interaction between the teacher and the student at the first place should be based on the feeling and the passionate of educating a new generation to the country, so the new generation to the world. By giving just the money for the student, the teachers easily fall into some problem in the future, like if they tutor the student extra time, they ask for more money. If they give student opportunity, they ask for more money. And if they're not getting the money from that, they feel disappointed. They feel hurt and they will likely to have hard feeling with that student. At the end of the day, the one who being harmed the most by this policy is not the teacher's panel. It's the student. Because I tell you that even just 1 second, the student feel like they can look easy with the teacher. The student feel like they can easily cheating. The student feel like grade is everything and the process is nothing. Then that is the moment the teacher failed their job at the first place. We don't want the teacher to fail the job here and we don't want the student to be harmed here. So for the reason, we're proud to oppose in this motion. Thank you.
You don't need to make a reply. So logical.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Are we good? We go? Okay. Right. Opposition paints teachers as if they're FBI agents. They would let all students cheat, they would sabotage other teachers, and they would risk their entire career. Note how radical their entire case sounds, right? Because opposition's case
Sorry.
Yeah.
The sound system is not working. I think it is cracking on your side. Could you like?
Okay, restart.
Okay, you should not put the paper close to the mic. Yeah,
Is
okay.
it better?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
better. Okay.
I'll start my speech again. I'll start my speech again.
But it's broken again.
Thì đâu phải lỗi tụi em đâu.
Can we go? Are we good?
It's still a bit broken. Can you move the computer a bit?
Where?
Anywhere, just like move it a bit.
Okay, is it better now?
I think it's better.
Can we go? Are we good?
Okay, you can go.
Okay. I'll start again then. Okay. Right. Opposition paints teachers as if they're FBI agents. They would let all students cheat. They would sabotage other teachers and they would risk their entire career. This is a very radical case on opposition, right? I think the main problem with opposition case is that it's contingent on the fact that because teachers want students to perform better, they will let students cheat, right? On our side, we feel that if teachers want students to be better, they would continuously give homework, tell them more, give them more attention, and care for them more, right? This is very two parallel incentive analysis, and what opposition fails to do today is to tell us why their analysis of incentive is more likely than our analysis, right? We did that job in God's be perfectly in past weeks, right? The next question I want to ask is what changed and what does it change in the status quo? What does it change, parents, is that teachers will still play a determining role in students' life. What changes on our side then is what rewards do teachers get for taking good care of students, right? In the status quo, it looks like inspirational speeches. It looks like thank you teachers. It looks like happy Teachers Day, right? It looks like the narrative that says, oh, you should show appreciation to your parents, right? But you can't use appreciation to pay for your house rent. You can't use appreciation to pay for your food on the table, right? What changes on our side is that teachers can better take care of their life now. This is unique on competition. What does it change also is that teachers will also likely to have good students in the class, right? Because it's more fun teaching them. Because they're more constructive to the lesson, right? Because it's very engaging and teachers love to be engaged, right? Just look like how you teach a class on Zoom and all done on black camera. They don't turn on their camera for example. It's very boring to teach those classes, right? What changes then is that on our side of the house, teachers who take bad classes now see a way to be rewarded, right? Since the effort to make bad students become better students, right? Is being treated unfairly in the status quo. This is what opposition claims that they have when they say we can also have bad students because teachers genuinely care about students. The best case that opposition has is that even if teachers on their side genuinely cares about students, the patience and the work will burn out because they don't get paid enough based on the reward, based on the student's performance, which is framed in my first speech, right? Education in school and the classroom is a living organism, right? Both teachers and students need to improve to move forward, right? The whole system can only move forward if teachers decide to improve their teaching quality and students have the motivation to learn, right? This is why, in our case, we continuously talk about the problem of seniority, right? About how 40 and 50-year-old teachers are considered with much more respect from students compared to young teachers because they just simply think the older you are, the more experience you have. Right? They disregard initiative, they disregard creativity from young teachers, right? And this is why, because MD talks about VADP teachers, I'm also going to talk about VADP coaches, right? At VADP, we continuously go to tournaments, right? To be beaten, right? Because we understand that only by us going to tournaments and improve can we come back and give better lectures to students, right? This is the direct incentive that exists on our side of the house. When our payment is attached to our students' performance, right? This incentive to move forward breaks the stigma of seniority, of the older you are, the more experience you are, and thus the more respect you deserve. All those reasons, opposition clearly takes this ground.